Hi, and welcome back to World Class Edge. In this video, we will get a more practical insight on the market profiling tools that we will use to follow the big money and align ourselves with the main money flow inside of the markets, with the market profile and the volume profile. I've created this new template that you can find in the video down here. We have the volume, the lower candle by candle volume, we have the market profile and the volume profile. So aligned to the left, we have the TPO. Aligned to the right, we have the volume profile. And so we get, for every session, both the market profile and the volume profile, okay? And let's analyze this current cash session, okay? The cash session, as you may remember, is from 3:30 to 22 Central European time, or 9:30 to 16, so 4 p.m. Chicago time. So this is where most of the volume is traded. This is where most of the money is moved in this specific asset and this specific contract, which is the E-mini S&P 500. So let's start from the TPO, okay? And then let's move on to the volume profile. As you can see, we have all the things we've learned. We have the yellow initial balance. We have the second balance, which is the purple one, the opening in blue, and the closing in red. We also happen to have a single print here, which I didn't activate it in the indicator. I just placed it here. And this reading tells us that we started our session here. So the candle of this session opened here. We probably went down a little bit and up a little bit and then down again a little bit and then touched here. We tried to auction lower. As we can see, we didn't spend a lot of time there. Here, for example, we spent a lot of time because there's a lot of TPO letters. Here, there's just one letter. So this is a strong low, which means that probably price did something like this. And this is a very bullish indication. And the second bullish indication is that we have the closing of the session here. Okay, so the session closed where this red little toggle is. So we started here. We probably went down here at some point, rejected very fast, and then we closed the session up here. So this is already a very bullish indication for our session. The volume profile confirms us that, because the distribution of value areas is very widespread across all the price range. So we have some here, some here, some here, some here, which means that likely what price did was something like this and continue accepting higher and higher until it closed here. And we have, reading the market structure as we've learned, volume and value areas going higher and higher. And we close here. So this is all very bullish sentiment and very bullish vibe from the market, and a clear flow of capital accepting higher and higher prices. As you will see, the point of control is here. Okay, the point of control is this pink line, and you will see it most likely near the close of the session. You would see it probably 8 times out of 10. Why does that happen? Because in every session, typically, what happens is there's a lot of volume at the open. Then volume is pretty flat throughout the whole time, except in this situation where there was a little bit of volume throughout the session, in the middle of the session. But the highest point of volume will be at the so-called closing auction. So you will see the spike, the highest spike of volume at the close of the cash session, which is happening at this price level. And that's where most of the money is traded. Because all the orders that couldn't be placed by market participants throughout the session will be put in the market at the very end, in the so-called closing auction. And they're called market on close orders. And this is a thing you might want to start noticing about how the auctions develop throughout the day. Then let's go to the following cash session. Let's just ignore this middle London session for a second. And as you can see, this second session that we're taking a look at, let's start again from the market profile. And we see that this is the open. So when we see an open, which is outside of the previous value area, so this were the fair prices up until yesterday. And today, market's already here. This is a very clear bullish indication. So this is the first idea of we're probably going to be long this session as well. And as you can see, this is the initial balance. And the second balance is here. Then we have a single print, another single print. And price clearly moved up, created value here, and closed around this area. This is the closing of the session, the red one, right? And as you can see, the point of control is exactly very close to the closing level of the session. Also here we have a strong low, we have a tail with a lot of TPOs. So this is another very bullish situation. So whenever we have a session that closes here and then the following one opens outside of the previous one, it's a very bullish indication for that session as well. Then what happens in the first few, let's say, hours of the session is very important, because if from this level where we open, we dive right back into this area of the previous cash session value, it means that price was not really ready to, the market was not really considering this price really fair, and it went straight back into a situation of balance from the previous day, and we're likely going to be consolidating for the rest of the session. But the fact that exactly at the beginning of the session we consolidated here for some hours, it's a very good indication that we're probably going to be bullish for the session. And this is exactly what happens, okay? So the first thing you want to look at is where are we opening compared to the previous value area, okay? If we're opening outside, upwards, it's a very bullish indication. If we were to open, for example, here, okay, so if this little level was to be here, then it was a clear indication that price was not yet ready to exit the fair value and buyers were not ready to accept higher prices. But this is a very clear indication that they did. And oftentimes at the beginning of the session, you will see if we open outside, and this was the close from the last session, you will see some sort of bearish momentum at the beginning of the session to try and fill this sort of gap between the close of the previous session and the open of the new one. And this happens around 68% of the time, okay, in the S&P 500 if we are bullish, around 71% if we're bearish, okay? This is some useful stuff that we will get deep into in the next modules. And let's see what this session is telling us. What's the information that we have available here? We know that we started here and then we created value above, and this is where the new value area is. Okay, so we have a very bullish type of situation. The close of the session, though, is inside of the value area, okay? Which means we've consolidated that level. If the closing of the session was going to be higher, that would have been a very bullish type of signal, okay? So, but anyway, we're still bullish. Let's see where the next session is going to be opening. As you can see, this is our previous value area, right? And we open actually right at the value area high. We try and pump up at the beginning of the session, but it doesn't work. And we dive right back in. So this is a failed auction, okay? And we create value exactly where the biggest value, the biggest chunk of value of the previous session was. So we understand buyers are not yet ready, okay? And we close also that session inside of the previous session value area. So inside of this range. And this tells us that we are at fair prices. We still are at pretty fair prices. The best situations here when we have a very strong up movement, but then we keep all the action of the day inside of that balance, is we're going to probably stay inside of this range. So we sell at the top and we buy at the bottoms, okay? We also have a very strong low, so sellers try to auction lower, but these single prints and these low volume nodes have done their job at keeping the auction higher. So the same guys that were considering these prices to be very cheap are still considering these prices to be very cheap and are willing to keep buying and keeping the auction here, okay? And that's where we close also the previous value area. So what we can do at this point is we can merge these two profiles. So we're going to merge and merge. Also the volume profile, we're gonna merge and we're gonna merge again. Okay. Whenever there is value areas in the same area of the previous one, we're gonna merge them, okay? This is how we're gonna do it. Then we have a London session, and the next cash session, which is this one, already opens where? Outside of the previous value area, right? What happens? As I told you, as the open of the session unfolds, we drop down, we test right on the value area high, okay? This is the business zone, the upper business zone that I will teach you how to draw in the next video. And then we pump up very, very fast. So the open is outside, which is the first bullish signal. We do, as I said, we kind of fill the gap with the previous cash session. And then we pump up, we have a very strong low. So this big tail of the TPO means there's a strong low here. We have a big imbalance in the volume profile coupled with the single print here. We create value above the value area. The most chunk of volume is here. And we also close up. So this is a very bullish type of session. Also in the next few sessions, we might be bullish as well, because price give us clear indication that we're going up. And as you can see, also this following session is very bullish. So again, what do we look for? Where is the opening of the session? Here, outside of the previous value area, okay? We push up at the beginning of the session, we push back down, we spend some time here actually, but then we move right back up and we close the session around here. So we're still very bullish, and the same buyers that consider these price fair are still consider them pretty fair and are pushing price back up. This whole value area is higher than the previous value area, so everything is pointing into one direction. So in the following session, what we will do, again, we will check where's the opening of the next session. If it's going to be inside of this value area, it's not a very bullish signal. If it's going to be outside, yes. After it's outside, we'll see what happens. Does it drop right back in and we want to stay in a comfortable area, or buyers are still finding these prices cheap and the auction keeps going higher? Let's see. And we have another gap. We open here outside of the previous value area. And as we open, you can see we drop right back in. Okay, we spend some time in the previous value area. The first range, the second range are here. We try and go up here at some point, but that's a very strong high. This is a failed auction. Price tried to go up here and dropped right back in, so buyers are not yet ready. So the best thing we can do here is likely going to be a ranging type of setup. And that's exactly what happens. Most of the volume is created here. We close the session here. Here's the point of control. So this is not a very bullish signal. It feels like we might be still bullish because we closed this session still outside of the previous value area. So we're still bullish, but maybe this session was not ready yet. Maybe the next session might be. This is the previous value area. This session is opening inside of the previous value area. And it's also closing inside of the previous value area. They tried to drop it down, but buyers were considering these prices to be very cheap. We have a big tail over here. And generally, when the opening is inside of the previous range, we are going to look for setups where we buy at the previous area low and sell at the previous area's high. Also, another thing you can notice is the yellow initial balance is very wide. When this happens, we're likely going to be expecting a very choppy kind of session. If most of the movement happened in the first 30 minutes, it's likely that we're not going to have a lot of volatility after. If the initial balance instead is pretty tight, pretty small, there's not a lot of momentum going on, it's likely to happen after, okay? When the session is unfolding, and so on and so forth. So to analyze session by session where market is going, we're going to take a look at where the session opens, where the session closes, how are the extreme levels of the market profile, is there any strong high or strong low, where do we close the session, and where is the value area going. Now take the template, apply it to your Deep Charts platform, and try to make the same sort of analysis by yourself.